Showa coal mine. This is a story from a Showa coal mine in a certain part of Hokkaido. It used to be a prosperous coal mining town with a considerable number of residents, but it was already abandoned when my friends and I went on a foolish camping trip. It was Sadoka who initiated the idea, and I said I didn't want to go, but Tamura's strong character and never backing down made a mess of things, and the three of us decided to go camping overnight at the ruins. It took us a couple of hours to get there by bicycle. The reason I said I didn't like it was because my dad and I had driven there once. I didn't hear anything about a ghost, but I didn't have a good feeling about it, and I had a memory of being in a kinbaku that day, so I wasn't in the mood for it. Anyway, it was supposed to be a bit of fun during the summer vacation. I think it was only around 2 o'clock when we arrived at the site. There were many apartment complexes and one-story apartment buildings. Some of the windows were broken, but many of the houses still looked usable. We played by throwing stones and breaking window panes, and exploring the houses. I think it had been several decades since the house was abandoned, but I could still sense a sense of life. There were calendars on the shoji screens and retro posters. I don't know if it was a town or a village, but when I cycled to what seemed to be the outskirts of town, I found a very strange structure. At first glance, it looked like a shrine, but it also looked like a miniature shrine, with what looked like a torii gate, but it was not a torii gate because it had 3 sides. There was an open door in front of it, as if it enshrined something. It was about the size of a chest of drawers. Sadoka thought it looked interesting and tried to open the door. There were no bills on the door. It didn't open easily, and after a lot of shuffling, it finally opened. The inside was decorated with a kind of paper hanging around the door, but it was not white, but a strange black color, probably red, which had deteriorated over time. What was strange was the writing on a piece of paper taped to the back of it. I didn't know it existed at the time, so I just thought, what the heck is this? There were several small drawers or boxes in front of it, and a pebble was placed in front of them. When we opened them, I think all 3 of us felt a shiver of fear for some reason. I was. A moment of silence passed, and Sadoka closed the door. No, he was about to close it, but the door on the left was rotting, or perhaps it fell down. Sadoka picked it up in a hurry and put it on the ground, then left the place and returned to the residential area, pretending to put it back together. He left the place and returned to the residential area, pretending to put it back together. I stopped the bike and took a breath, and when I said, I was so scared I couldn't look back, they did the same. It was not scary, it was more like sickening, but in short, it was such a bad feeling. We got ourselves together and continued to explore and enjoy the rest of the day. There were also wild strawberries, which were tart but delicious. It's the only good memory I have. The exploration was fun at first, but as the sun began to set, I started to get a little scared. And then there was what had happened earlier. There was silence except for the wind and the buzzing of insects. At first we planned to stay in a tent, but we found a relatively clean Japanese-style room on the 2nd floor of a house and decided that this would be better than a tent. It was too much trouble to pitch a tent, and we thought it would be better to sleep on tatami mats in a Japanese-style room. We didn't have to do much preparation for camping, and dinner was a simple bread and milk. We played cards by the light of a flashlight and lantern, but when the night became pitch black, I was filled with unconditional fear. I said, we can still go home at 11 o'clock now, so let's go home already, but again, Tamura's personality got the better of him and he dismissed the idea. I think it was close to 9 o'clock. Sadoka said, I have to take a shit. I remember that it was a Japanese-style toilet in the daytime. Sadoka went to the toilet, saying, it can't be helped. The toilet was next to the entrance and 1 room away from our Japanese-style room. It was right there, but it felt incredibly far away, and I thought to myself, I'll never go to the bathroom. At that time, Sadoka came back with a flurry of screams. Tamura and I were surprised to hear Sadoka's scream and screamed together. Sadoka's pants were still halfway down. His face was blue even by lantern light, and he was shaking like crazy. I was in no condition to speak properly, but here is what happened. When he entered the bathroom, took off his pants and was about to crouch down, he said he saw a man staring at him through the small window of the bathroom. He said he could see him clearly in the moonlight through the half-open window. He also said, trembling and shaking, that it was not a ghost, but a living human face, although he did not know what to make of it. I will never forget the look on Sadoka's face when Tamura said, "You idiot, we're on the second floor." I said, "Let's go home after all." This is an abandoned mining town deep in the mountains. We had to take a very scary mountain road to get back home, but I thought it was better than spending the night in such a place. I really regretted coming to camp in such a place. Anyway, I wanted to go back to where my mother and father were. I heard a distinct banging on the front door, and all three of us heard it. Sadoka had left the door open, so the front door was slightly visible. The sound was like a living person banging on the front door, although there was no evidence of this either. The three of us held each other's hands. We were all in a state of shock. I couldn't stop my knees from buckling. I reminded myself that nothing would happen after this, but after a short pause I hear the sound again. My heart was on the verge of exploding. We talked in whispers. "Tamura, maybe someone really is here, let's answer." "Me, idiot, if they were human, they would have called out to us with a knock." Sadoka said nothing, just trembled. Then the sound ceased. But our trembling did not stop. So the three of us were cuddling, and I suddenly noticed something unusual happening to Sadoka. The way he has been shaking since he was in the lavatory has become unusual by all accounts. It was like a cramp. He sounded like he was trying to say something, but it was like, hiccup hiccup hiccup. "Sada, what are you doing? Calm down, don't make that creepy voice," Tamura whispered angrily. I thought I was going to lose my mind, too, because I didn't know what was going on. Tamura was the only one I could rely on, but he looked like he was about to cry. It was past 10 o'clock, and we were planning to somehow get out of here and bike home. The only thing we were carrying was a tent, but that was still strapped to the bike. If we could get outside, we would dash out on our bicycles and leave this place anyway. This time, we heard something like a lot of people walking around. I mean, at first the sound was so small that I ignored it, but it was gradually getting louder and louder, so I couldn't listen to it anymore. I thought I heard what sounded like talking, but it was an incomprehensible voice that did not sound like Japanese, and it still sounded distant. On second thought, it could have been footsteps, but I guess that's what you instinctively feel when you're in a situation like this. In any case, the situation was still too iffy to be definite or not, so we decided to get out before it got any closer. Sadoka was still in a hiccup state. "Sada, look, we're going home now. I'm going to ride my bicycle all the way home." We left the Japanese-style room holding Sadoka by both arms and came to the front door. We stopped thinking to escape our fears, and our plan was to go at once. "Look, the three of us are going to open the door, and we're going to do it all at once," he said. We opened the door with a Seino, but Hokkaido is a snowy island, so the door is basically a sliding door. When snow piles up, you can't open the door, right? So I was planning to open the door with a whispered Seino and rush out, but that plan fell apart. When we opened the door to find a man standing there, staring at us with a frightening expression on his face. We were sprawled backwards. I mean, I think we were probably blown away. I don't know why, but I was on my knees, calling out, I'm sorry. Tamura joined us from the middle of the meeting, but Sadoka couldn't hear us, and I don't remember what was really going on. Anyway, I was calling out I'm sorry a lot, when I suddenly felt a presence disappear and looked up a little fearfully and saw that the man was no longer in sight. I felt that my fear had gone away a little because of the loud voice I had made. Tamura and I looked at each other, picked Sadoka up on either side of us, and went down the stairs anyway. I wanted to go down the stairs at once, but Sadoka was like that, and I remember it was very dangerous and sluggish to go down the stairs in an abandoned building. The road was almost a straight one, with a path leading to the daytime shrine on the left and ours on the right. I think the noise was coming from the left. The only thing that eased my fear was the moonlight, but I was afraid I might see something I didn't want to see. Then something else happened. The Sada I had seen earlier had completely regained her composure, and her eyes were glowing with an uncanny brightness. "Kai-san," he said, and for a moment she looked horrified. I was about to open my mouth again to say something when Tamura gave me a hard slap. I was standing next to him and slapped Sadoko on the back as hard as I could. I think both Tamura and I understood what was happening. Looking back, it was an amazing combination play. Whether the slap or the dong on his back worked, we saw Sadoko's face return to its former weepy state, and we cycled as fast as we could. Suddenly Tamura started chanting sutra in a loud voice. I started chanting along with him, and anyway we kept chanting over and over again. We started singing the school song, but we just kept on pedaling our bicycles, singing it loudly. I never looked back. I think it was non-stop for an hour until we passed through the mountains of the Showa coal mine because we were afraid to stop. The road was a gravel road. If I had to make an adaptation, I would say that even this 1 hour was super scary. Tamura was yelling "Stop, don't pull." And the mountain road in the middle of the night was scary enough. Anyway, I was so happy that I cried when I saw the outside light for the first time. I think it was close to midnight, and there was some kind of small parking lot with a few exterior lights. It was like, electricity, electricity. We parked our bikes there and caught our breath for a while. If I had a cell phone, I would have called home, but these were not the days. Even if we had, we were in a place where there was absolutely no signal. Sadoko looked like he was about to cry, but he was back to normal anyway. There were many options, but we pitched our tent there and spent the night. I guess electricity seemed to be the best protection of all. Nothing happened after that. I mean, I fell asleep right away. I must have been very tired. Body and soul. When I woke up in the morning, Sadoko and Tamura were still sound asleep. When I went outside and saw the sunrise, I wondered what in the world had happened last night. It seemed like a dream. Looking back, I wonder if it was in fact a dream or something. I have not seen Sadoko or Tamura since I graduated from junior high school. I left Hokkaido and am just now writing this from some place in Kanagawa. It was an experience I don't really want to remember. This concludes this story. Thank you for listening to the end.